Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We need some help from you now. Come on, Scooby-Doo, I see you, pretending you got a sliver. You're not fooling me.
All right, well, let's do this then. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 200 and... wow, I can't even remember, 214th, 13th, 14th, somewhere around there. We're closing in on 215, I know that much, episode of Source Material. And this evening, we will be discussing a book that I wasn't expecting to cover at any point on here. And as a matter of fact, one of the guests that we have on here tonight was, I believe, the one that suggested it. However, completely forgot that he suggested it after I reminded him of it. So welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. Jason Teasley. Jason, now, do you remember suggesting this at any point?
In typical fashion, of course I do.
Jason sends me, okay, Teasley sends me a message, and he says, have you heard about these comics about Scooby Doo and the apocalypse? And I was like, yeah, I kind of have. I haven't read anything about it, but I've heard what was going on in them. And he's like, oh man, we've got to cover this at some point. And I'm like, okay. So I talked to the old man Radlich, Mr. Schedule himself, and he slaps it on the schedule. He made sure that it was something that he didn't have to cover as he's out there on his cruise. So Mr. Mark Radlich, the patriarch of the Radlich and Broadcasting Network, will not be joining us tonight. But in Mark Radlich's place, one of our favorite people to go to when we want to talk animated, anything cartoon related, Hanna-Barbera, Looney Tunes, that is Alexis Hejna. Alexis, welcome back to the podcast.
Glad to be back, and may I be the first to drop jinkies.
No.
Callback.
So, okay, Teasley, so you say you don't remember. You say you do remember. Of course you do remember.
Okay, my defense. Hold on my defense. Okay. When I suggest things, I tend to forget about them the next day. The fact that, Mark was involved, who schedules his life 6 years in advance.
Yes.
To record shows. So when it goes on a schedule, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you knew what you was getting into tonight, but we are covering only the first 6 issues of that series. Scooby Doo Apocalypse comes out July of 2016, scripted by J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen, two writers that I'm pretty certain we've talked about on this podcast before. And throughout the book, we have pencils by Howard Potter. And then we get to the last issue, issue 6, and there's some guest artists that pop in there. Wellington Alves and Dave Eaglesham, which we have talked about. Dave, I'm pretty sure, has had some art show up on this podcast as well. But this is all based on a concept by Jim Lee. Yes, that Jim Lee. So he came up with this idea and put it into motion. And ergo, we have the first 6 issues, this volume 1 that we're going to be covering tonight. So Scooby Doo. I mean, let's just real quick before we hop into the meat and potatoes of what we came here to talk about. Scooby Doo, if you're not familiar, is an American, straight from the wiki, ladies and gentlemen, an American animated franchise comprising many animated television series produced from 1969 to the present day. Writers Joe Ruby and Ken Spears created the original series Scooby Doo, Where Are You? For Hanna-Barbera Productions in 1969. The Saturday morning cartoon series featured 4 teenagers, Fred Jones, Daphne Blake, Velma Dinkley, and Norval Shaggy Rogers, and their talking brown Great Dane named Scooby Doo, who solve mysteries involving supposedly supernatural creatures through a series of antics and missteps. So this show has had its hand in Saturday morning cartoons since I can remember. So let's go around real quick and talk about if we have any Scooby-Doo memories. Alexis, we'll start with you. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Tell us about your familiarity with this franchise.
Like you said, I don't think there has been a decade that has passed since the original Scooby-Doo has come out where we have not had another incarnation. We had the Scooby-Doo show. We had Scooby and Scrappy. We had the new Scooby-Doo movies. We had a pup named Scooby Doo.
Yep.
You know, we've got all these new modern incarnations. I have seen the Scooby Doo Supernatural crossover more times than I care to confess.
So did you sit down at Saturday mornings for you, Alexis? Were you watching Scooby Doo or after school, or what was going on?
Watched it like crazy. I remember one of my first, or one of the last flights I took, they had little TVs on. You could pay, I think it was like $5. You could watch TV, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? Oh, they got a Scooby-Doo network. Yes.
Nice.
No, I adore Scooby-Doo. It's always been a huge part of my life. We were just talking about this. My husband's favorite character is Scrappy-Doo. So
Scrappy-Doo.
Yeah.
Now he gets I want to say a bad reputation because he was so annoying in some of the episodes that I can recall. But I never saw the level of hate get more intense than when the actual live action movies came out. That was almost like they were in on the joke about Scrappy-Doo and made him into a villain in that. Like you guys corrected me there earlier, it's the first movie that he was in. But yes, Scrappy-Doo. I don't know. He never annoyed me that bad, but boy, did he really! He must have annoyed a lot of other people.
Well, it's interesting because Scrappy-Doo actually kind of saved the series as a whole. He was actually the catalyst that brought back new viewers. But yeah, later on we look back on and realize that it was like, what the hell were we thinking? But
he was cousin Oliver.
Yeah.
He was cousin Oliver. Yes.
Brady Bunch. All right, Teasley, tell me some Scooby-Doo memories for you, sir. How about you?
I love Scooby-Doo. I grew up on it. Being the second oldest person on the Religion Broadcasting Network, I'm sure that I've probably seen some Scooby-Doos on first run. Growing up with Scooby-Doo, I loved all the crossover, all the Batman and Robin crossovers, all the quirky, Mama Cass or whatever, Cass Elliot, and all those
crossover Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats?
Yeah, and then you had like the spin-offs, of course. But I told you guys this, and I made you wait for it. My all-time favorite Scooby-Doo character was Scooby-Dum.
Oh, Scooby-Dum!
Oh, wow!
I
forgot all about him.
So much that before I got my boxer pup, I was trying to convince my wife to go in and pay almost $2,500 for a gray and dark blue spotted Great Dane pup. I was going to have to drive 5.5 hours one way to pick him up. She nixed that idea and got me the boxer pup instead. So I'm still happy. I got my boxer.
Yeah.
All the Scooby-Doo, different Scooby-Doos, the only one I hated was the new Scooby-Doo that they recently brought out. It really sucked, and I hated it. Like they tried to do the prequel movies, but the prequel movies that Cartoon Network done, they were a whole lot of tongue-in-cheek. They were campy for just to be campy and kind of made fun of themselves. So they were self-aware. So I kind of like that. Not as much as, the other movies, but growing up, Scooby-Doo was a huge part of sick days as much as The Price is Right.
I recall watching a lot of it was probably that first year run that was in, they just kept repeating on either Nickelodeon or USA, whichever channel it was on. But I faintly recall the crossover with Don Knotts. There's like a few of those where Don Knotts makes a showing there. Harlem Globetrotters, don't they show up in one?
Oh, they showed up many times.
So, yeah, it's like I can recall a few of the episodes, but it's been a while since I probably jumped back in there. Recently, I would say it was probably 2007, 2008. I know it was after we had moved back here to where we're living now. I went to the library and was trying to find DVDs for my daughter. When she would go to bed, she would usually watch DVDs, go to sleep. And one of the things I picked up was a pup named Scooby Doo. So that was probably the last iteration of Scooby Doo that I can recall actually watching. I haven't watched anything since then. So
I loved a pup named Scooby Doo.
Yeah, I didn't think it was bad. I actually, what I recall watching was actually pretty decent. It was like Muppet Babies, except it was the Scooby Gang. So let's go ahead and we will hop in here real quick to the synopsis. Like I said, this is 6 issues. I've got it down to a paragraph here as to what happens in these 6 issues. And then we'll talk about the characters and what they go through and just our thoughts on what happens in the series compared to what we're used to in the cartoon, because there are definitely some differences here. Definitely some differences. So, all right, Scooby-Doo, Apocalypse, issues 1 through 6. Things are a bit different from what we may have been used to in the past with this franchise. We start out our story as the team first comes together. Velma, part of an organization that has secretly infused humanity with physiologically changing nanites that were intended to bring humanity closer together. All right, folks, I don't recall that one being a plot in the Scooby-Doo episode, but here we go. Intended to bring humanity closer together. But when she finds out that the leaders of the organization, called the Four, intend to use the technology to make humanity more pacifistic, but also make them more suggestible, she intends to expose them by making a phone call to the supernatural TV show personality Daphne, who comes to meet her with her cameraman Fred at an analog to our real-world Burning Man festival. When they finally meet, another duo at the festival, Shaggy and Scooby Doo, also residents of the same facility that Velma works, accompany the other 3 into the lab. Scooby is part of an experiment that has enhanced him, allowing him to talk, which I think that was part of the enhancement, right? Like that was that part of it, or could he talk before then? He couldn't talk before the enhancement.
No, it was part of the enhancement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why when we see the later dogs, one can talk perfectly, the others all had their I think they said it was an enunciation chip burned out.
Okay.
So they say that he was like the first one, and that's why he still speaks with a retro.
Okay.
Speech impediment.
The classic Scooby dialect.
Yep. Allowing him to talk with wait a second. As enhanced him, allowing him to talk also with the assist of some emote technology attached to his brain. Meanwhile, Shaggy is just a dog trainer that happened to get a job to help train the animals there, but makes a best friend of Scooby when he rescues him from a vicious attack from the other enhanced dogs, including one nefarious Scrappy Doo. While Velma is showing the rest of the gang the inside of the lab, they reach the safe zone and all hell breaks loose. After a large power surge causes the facility and safe zone to lock down, Velma is convinced the Four have finally enacted the nanites and their plan for world dominance. Emerging from the lab, the gang begin to encounter not pacifistic men and women, but ghouls, vampires, and demons with no sight of humanity alive and well. The rest of the first 6 issues finds our team escaping the lab, nearly escaping death, finding refuge at a mall mart, and coming to grips with their new reality. Not to mention solving a mystery. Did the Four activate the nanites? If so, what could have possibly caused this apocalypse that they are now facing? There we go. That's our first 6 issues. So let's jump in. Let's talk about our characters here and, what we find out about them, whatever tickles your fancy here. What do you think of the Scooby-Doo that we get in this series there, Teasley?
Actually, I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the whole premise. When I first pitched this to you, I honestly thought it was going to be like a continuation of the old Scooby-Doo that everybody grew up on, everybody knew, and they were just going to be put into this apocalyptic universe.
Okay.
I didn't know.
I was kind of expecting the same thing.
I was totally blown away when I first dove into it, seeing that they was rewriting everything. You were starting ground zero, building the team up, building the interactions, and you see that. You see especially with Velma and Daphne. Everything wasn't best friends hunky-dory. In the beginning, it was very confrontational between those two.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't have the typical trope of Daphne in distress. Daphne's kind of a badass in this.
Yes,
she is kind of like Universal Soldier. And you see this. You see they kind of take some of the good things from Shaggy and Scooby and just kind of update them. Shaggy isn't this. Everybody always knew Shaggy was kind of a stoner. hippie. Now he's more of he said he was a Buddhist for a semester in high school. You know, they've kind of updated everybody. Everybody's not falling into the tropes they did when Scooby-Doo was the cartoon we all grew up on. Seeing the friendship that him and Shaggy form simply because Shaggy was a dog trainer that seen how special Scooby was, and then to see Scooby through his enhancements and stuff totally shed that idea that everybody thought that he was a failed experiment, to be the loyal dog that he is, and to be an amazing protector of the group. It was really fun to just start peeling those layers back and exploring a whole new side of what could happen in the Scooby-Doo universe.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I picked up on was that Scooby's not like the scared pup, you know, or the scared dog that he always was in the series. You know, he was the one, it seemed like, always running away from trouble. And there are probably a good 3 or 4 spots in here where they clearly chalk it up to animalistic instinct. But there's like 3 or 4 times where he saves somebody's ass. He's definitely got more of a streak of courage, I guess you would say, which is different from what we're kind of used to, especially in the cartoon series that we all grew up on. Yeah, the cybernetic and physical enhancements, I thought that was really going to bother me. I thought I wouldn't like that on him, but it didn't bother me at all. There wasn't a time where, oh man, I cannot remember which. It was one of the Hanna-Barbera crossovers where Dino-Mutt and Super Sons. And Dino-Mutt's pretty much a cybernetic organism altogether. But anyway, they don't rely on that like they did with Dino-Mutt in the series that we read there. I think it was earlier last year. So
wasn't that our Hanna-Barbera where we talked to was
Mark's dad? I think it was.
Dad.
Yeah, it was Mark's dad.
Alive and well, Art.
That's right. Yeah.
I love Dino-Mutt too.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, I thought that would bother me. Didn't bother me. So I mean, this, you know, Scooby-Doo, as far as Scooby-Doo goes, he's definitely different. But it's, you know, there's still all the same familiar traits. That, okay, this feels like Scooby-Doo to me. Alexis, what do you think of Scooby-Doo?
Okay, I do like, I agree with what you guys were saying. I do like that this is not just a continuation. I was expecting that, kind of like, what was it, the first Scooby-Doo animated movie, the Zombie Island one, with just Island, and they're like, oh, it's going to be the same thing it always is. Surprise, it's not. Those are real zombies. And I was kind of worried we were going to see something similar to that. So I did like bringing them together through different things. But I will admit the dialogue kind of got on my nerves after a while.
Oh,
Firstly,
it's repetitive.
It's insanely repetitive. First of all, I hate to say it, I'm kind of a stickler on comic book layout. I am a graphic designer. I used to do it professionally. Now I do it freelance. And I'm always looking for comics that have really unique layouts. We talked about this when we did the Batwoman Elegy series and how amazingly beautiful that was. And this comic is very crammed, especially with dialogue balloons. And there's a lot of... Okay, help me out here, guys. I'm trying to remember exactly what it's called when a conversation starts in a word balloon and then it goes to another panel, but it's in like one of those little continuation boxes in the top left corners.
Shitty.
I don't know if there's an actual term for it either. I'm sure there is, but I have no idea what the hell it is.
I thought they did that. I thought they relied on that a little too much.
Yeah.
There was a lot of parts where I couldn't tell at first who was talking. I mean, I'm glad that when they started doing the inner monologues, the color, like in the later seasons, the color boxes were colored, or the boxes were colored if they were directly linked. So, you know, Shaggy was green, Velma was orange, Daphne was purple, and I like that. But the first 2 issues, there were several parts where you really didn't know which character was saying what.
Yeah.
Hell, I don't even think it was until the 3rd issue that they started giving Shaggy a bit of a speech impediment with the T apostrophe. So it's like to go like that. And yeah, the dialogue was very repetitive. Who here started, you know, doing shots every single time Daphne and Velma got into the argument of, this is your fault. I told you it's not my fault.
I know.
I did not want to do shots on that because I enjoy living. And that would lead to alcohol poisoning.
It was bad. I mean, that is probably my biggest criticism of this book is, you know, Keith Giffen, who is hold on a second. Let me make sure I got this right. Yeah, J.M. DeMatteis and Keith Giffen. I don't know if they felt like, okay, somebody's going to be picking this book up today, and it's issue number 3, but we want to make sure they understand why these people aren't getting along. So we've got to show that they're arguing and what they're arguing about again and again.
And it was very wordy. I mean,
well, dude, you take out that whole premise.
Novel wordy.
You take out that whole. She only has to say it once, really. And this story is kind of made for the trade, at least right now. You only have to say it once and then move on. We don't have to repeat it. So, yeah, I will agree with you there.
Yeah, it felt like there was like at least 3 arguments about it being Velma's fault.
I don't trust you, Velma. I don't trust you one bit.
You had that at least 3 times in every issue.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, again, am I the only one who thought that they were cramming way too many word balloons, too many conversations into the actual just layout of the pages?
It was very wordy. Like I said, I mean, to me, that was an issue that I had. Is they took in the old adage, a $2 conversation and expounded into a $10 conversation.
Yeah.
And they made it they could have said the exact same thing with far less words and got the point across a lot better and held the attention of the reader better.
Another thing they kept repeating constantly, wait, those are humans. I just killed a human. They're
not
humans anymore, but they may still have been, because we don't know exactly what is going on is mutated into these creatures.
Yeah.
For the record, this is a very whiny little point of mine, but I am just going to say it. I was kind of hoping that we were going to see more of like the monsters from the TV show dramatized, like they were going to try to get out of here. It's like, there's a pterodactyl, there's a tar monster.
What was it? The creeper? I was really looking forward to it.
I love the creeper.
None of that.
And the
Ghost, that's my favorite episode.
The mutated submarine dude.
Captain Cutler.
Yes, was that his name?
Yep.
I'm hoping. Well, I mean, this thing's got 36 issues, so maybe we come across them later on.
I was really hoping when we started seeing the monsters that, I mean, even when they say like that, wait, it's like they mentioned something about there being a werewolf at first, and then it's Scooby. But I'm like, oh come on, you couldn't drop in one little thing about the werewolf ghost. He's one of the most iconic villains.
Really, the only like kind of Easter egg we get, I mean, and it wasn't even to the Scooby Doo show. They kind of make a mention of, I can't remember if it's Scrappy. Scrappy makes a mention of Huckleberry Hound.
Yeah, it took me a minute. I was like, wait, which Huck? Yeah, he talks about Huck. He says, where did he? I don't even know where he got that Southern draw, and that did make me laugh. That was good.
That's really the only real Easter egg we get to kind of like anything to the previous series, unless there's stuff I'm missing throughout here, and you guys would probably be the ones to pick up on it. Oh, okay, Alexis, what do you think of like the character Scooby here? Any comments on Scooby Doo himself in this here book?
Well, there's this one thing I thought was kind of interesting. See, I don't know if you guys know this, but when the crew was originally designing Scooby-Doo for the classic animated series, they purposely went out of their way to give him all of these faults that you would never see in a Great Dane. The spots, the bow-leggedness, the double chin. They even make a joke about that in that one episode with the dog nappers. When Scooby-Doo, masquerades as a champion Great Dane.
Was that the episode that they was in Paris or something for a dog show?
No, that was the episode that doesn't really get aired anymore because Native Americans would be very offended.
Oh, no.
I remember there being one where they was like in London or Paris or something, and there was dog nappers.
No, these were dog nappers disguised as Native Americans.
Well then, so they built in faults. Now, see, I had no idea about that. No clue that they did that with the. Now, of course, I don't know much about dogs either, but that's pretty interesting. So continue. Was there something else you were going to point out there?
Yeah, I like the design of Scooby itself because it's clear that they wanted to keep some of the iconic imagery that has made Scooby-Doo into such, stand out from other dogs that are, animated. But they clearly wanted to make him look look more realistic. So I like they kept the spots, and he's still a little bow-legged, but they lost the double chin. I thought that was a really nice compromise because, if you take away all the things that they added to Scooby-Doo, you lose a lot of Scooby's identity.
Yeah. It's like I said, he felt familiar to me. He felt like the Scooby that I know. He's got the rut row, and even though he's got these cybernetic enhancement, digital eyebrows, so that you can really understand that the dog's mad when his eyebrows are furrowed in. So anyway, interesting stuff. Let's move on to we've already talked about her already, but Daphne. Alexis, give us some more input on what you thought of Daphne.
Daphne needed to shut up. Okay, I am not against changing Daphne's character as long as it's, again, not like the first live action movie where they were just basically told Sarah Michelle Gellar, just go channel Buffy. I'm sorry, that's all that last scene was. Like, it's just Buffy fighting a masked wrestler. Go nuts. And I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer as much as the next geek.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I feel that a lot of we were talking about how there's a lot of excess dialogue and there's a lot of wordiness, and at least 70% of that is her.
Yeah.
Again, she repeatedly yells at Velma that she doesn't trust her. Then she yells at everyone else. She yells at Fred.
She doesn't just yell at, she punches Fred at one point. She punches Velma at another one. I mean, my notes here, I put in here, she can be a shrew. I mean, she is like really, really pissed off, and she's like got no problem punching you if she thinks you're being a dick or whatever. She threw a laptop at Velma. I mean, I understand she doesn't trust Velma throughout this series.
And I get it, it's the end of the world, and you're allowed to be a little frustrated during the apocalypse.
Yeah, but you don't just go chucking laptops at people's heads, okay? It
was a very nice gaming laptop.
Yeah, here you go. Right on the side of her head.
And the battery was fully charged out of the box, which baffled me.
What'd you think of her backstory, Alexis, with the whole knitting channel and the mysteries? I can't remember, mysterious mysteries. Again,
I thought that was kind of a callback to the animated Zombie Island movie.
Oh, okay.
That's when that starts out in that movie. We find out that the gang is split up, and Daphne is now hosting her own talk show with Fred as her cameraman. And I thought, well, okay. I thought they were kind of doing a little callback with that. I honestly felt there were only two parts of her that actually stuck to the original character that we recognize. Again, they didn't just change her. I felt that they wrote a completely new character and just called her Daphne, with the exception of two parts. She says Jeepers, and when she admits that she grew up on a rich estate, because we know Daphne Blake's family came from money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And other than that, I was like, that's not Daphne.
Teasley, you got any thoughts about Daphne?
I kind of like the new Daphne. I mean, because she was always the damsel in distress. And I think that was something that they pulled from the first movie, because if you remember in the first movie, they make a callback that she's done all these trainings and stuff, so she's no longer the damsel in distress.
Okay.
And
I gotta interrupt. The whole Daphne is the damsel in distress thing never made sense to me, because watching the series as much as I did, Shaggy and Scooby got kidnapped way more than she ever did.
Yeah.
I like the little nod when Fred says they need to split up. I kind of got a chuckle out of that when I was reading that.
They all had their catchphrases, and that's the one thing he yells.
and then the throwback to when they was in the lab, like I think they were demons that dropped down, and everybody has their catchphrase, and it's just got Fred standing there, nothing. So I kind of like that. The one thing I didn't like, no ascot. I was really hoping for an ascot.
Oh, well, I mean, what does he have? He has a
I think it's a
handkerchief or a neckerchief or whatever. Yeah. What do you think of Shaggy there, Teasley?
I liked how they done Shaggy. The only character I really didn't like was how they did Velma, but we'll get into that shortly. But I like how they did Shaggy as like the conservationist. Like it was funny. They kind of modeled him to me after Steve Irwin. It was like he was all about, saving. He's like, he gets upset if he has to step on an ant or something. And he's like really self-aware of like the type of person he is, and he's an animal lover. He's just really laid back. They didn't make him the overly, stupid. Oh, he's just here as, comic relief with Scooby. They actually gave him a little bit of depth and fleshed out the character a little bit more, which I really enjoyed because I'm a Shaggy fan. I mean, if anybody knew me back in the day, I could have probably cosplayed as Shaggy. Really. Well, that was probably about 70 pounds ago and 20 years. But I liked how they did Shaggy. It wasn't really over the top how they portrayed him.
Okay. Would you say he's probably of the Scooby gang here? Would you say that he's the biggest changed of all of what we were used to from the cartoon?
No, Daphne was the biggest change because, like I said, she became Sarah Connor in this comic. Well, I take that back. The biggest change in the comic was the Mystery Machine. Because it is now a tank.
Yes, it is. That thing is a beast.
I did love the little knock. The first thing I actually thought when I saw them getting into the quote unquote Mystery Machine, I'm like, oh, come on, it's just a dark green van. But then in the next book, you see that it's got splatters on it in green and orange from fighting the monsters, and it looks like the flower pattern. I'm like, okay, touche. That was actually quite good.
I did not notice that. I'm glad you pointed. I'm going to have to go back and look at that. I did not notice. I seen the splatter, but I didn't take notice of the pattern. So that's a nice little call out. I'm gonna have to check out.
Alexis, Shaggy, what do you think?
Again, I agree. I like that they kept him from being I was so worried at one point they were going to catch Shaggy smoking a joint in the van or in the tank.
Oh, go hard hippie, huh?
Yeah. No, he's not a hippie. He's a hipster, complete with that freaking curly Q mustache.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, they made him a hipster. But I did kind of like him. I like that they kept that he kept his cool a little bit. Because when they're talking about, what everyone brings to the team, you do actually sit back and you think, wait, what did Shaggy bring into the team except for the fact he was clearly Scooby's owner?
He was the nutritionist for the gang back then.
Figure out where they could eat, no problem.
Did you guys know that after the second season, voice actor Casey Kasem insisted that Shaggy become a vegetarian because he was a vegetarian too?
No, I did not know that. Is that actually do they animate him at all, like eating meat or anything at all after that?
Not after that. In fact, it's
all Scooby snacks.
It's still canon, I believe, that in the movies and in all the other animated series, I believe they have kept it that Shaggy has remained vegetarian ever since the second season of the original series.
Ah, interesting. Very interesting.
Other thing I know is the stink that has been raised lately by Matthew Lillard about him not reprising the role of Shaggy going forward when they reboot everything, because as Casey Kasem quote unquote passed on the Shaggy character to him, and he has been replaced by somebody else going forward, and he made a big stink about it on social media.
I didn't hear about that, no.
Well, for the record, he found out no one told him. He basically found out through the social media post. And let's face it, that's a crappy way to find out you've been fired.
Yeah, that sucks.
Especially for such an iconic role.
Well, the only thing I've been hearing about him lately is his bid to try and get Shaggy into Mortal Kombat. And then...
Fiasco. Oh my God. There was a guy on one of my Facebook groups who basically posted every Shaggy meme he could find. It was ridiculous.
That's classic.
I think Shaggy would be a nice addition to Mortal Kombat.
Oh my gosh.
Especially this version of Shaggy.
I mean, they are cutting their teeth, but he's still like, of all of them, he's the one that, just like you said earlier, he is the one that doesn't want to hurt anybody. So I don't know. But
see, there you go. Friendshipality.
Oh Jesus.
I think they just called them friendships. But hey. All right. Well, okay, let's talk Fred. I mean, Fred feels kind of, I don't want to say one note, but I mean, he doesn't really, other than the fact that he is completely in love with Daphne. to a point where it's almost sad. Alexis, you got any commentary on Fred, the character of Fred here?
Fred never was a character.
He was just this guy, wasn't he? That just kind of directed things, and that was it.
The only thing I always loved about Fred, again, harkening back to the voice acting, is that Frank Welker has done the voice of Fred in every single version of Scooby Doo that has ever come out. And thank God, even though they fired Matt Lillard, they did not fire Frank Welker, because I don't think anyone else should ever voice that character.
That is amazing stuff.
I think Fred was the one character that took a step back from his comic, his early comic portrayal. And then I started thinking, well, what purpose did Fred ever serve? He was the leader, and we don't know how he became the leader because Velma was the brains.
Yeah.
It was like, how did Fred get anointed the leader? Maybe because of his awesome ascot. That was the reason. Because back then ascots were in, and everybody thought that maybe, the white sweater, red ascot thing, promoted leadership. I don't know. Maybe he's the only one with a driver's license because he's the only one that ever drove them.
That's true. Yeah, he's the designated driver. Alexis, help me out here. Just because I know I'm a novice when it comes to watching the Scooby Doo program, did Fred ever get kidnapped, or was there any sense of danger around Fred?
No.
That's the big difference here, because Fred almost dies like 3 times in this comic book. He definitely gets messed up by one of the demons, and there's one point where I think he almost gets does he get completely sucked into that girl demon in issue 5?
And he basically blasts something that goes floaty and gets out.
Okay.
That was so weird.
I think he had the gun, because it almost went from it was either at the end of that issue.
The gun. He's because the little girl's talking to him and he gets too close to her and it picks him up and about swallows him, and Daphne blows it up and it blows Fred across the room, and he says, "You got to give me a minute. I almost died or something." It's like, dude, this is, in the past 12 hours, this is the second time.
Yeah. That's probably maybe the biggest change for that character is the fact that he's the one, or at least that's a different style in the writing here. Hey, all bets are off. Anybody can go, and of course, they may be main characters, but the peril is there for everybody. Fred's not just going to get a pass from potentially dying just because he's wearing a red handkerchief around his neck. So let's talk about our final member of the Scooby Gang, and the one that seems to be, most shrouded in mystery, and that'd be Velma. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with one question here, Teasley. We go through 6 issues of this. We really don't get a whole lot of answers about what has happened. At the end of this, there's still a mystery to be solved. Do you trust Velma?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they put her in the situation where they shouldn't trust her, but I mean, they want to give you that red herring that you always had in a pup named Scooby Doo. He was always, I think it was even his name was Red Herring.
Yes, I remember that character. It's like every time Fred had to accuse him of something.
Yeah, he always accused him of being the one behind it. And but I mean, I think that they're trying to build it up that Velma is this evil mastermind behind all of it. It's not. She was a pawn in the game. They used her for her intelligence, and yippee-ki-yay, who cares? It's like they're trying too hard to make you think she's behind things more than she actually is.
Okay, now I know we talked about it earlier. The 6th issue, Alexis, do we get any answers in there as to whether she's behind it? I don't think we do. We just get more of the fact that she feels that she was deceived by her brothers, who we find out are the 4 that own this lab and are, putting this plan in place with these nanites and all that. But she was convinced to become a member of that group, but then her conscience gets the better of her, and ergo why she involved Daphne and all of them to try and expose what was going to happen. But I mean, Daphne Daphne runs around saying she's not going to trust her. So, Alexis, I ask you the same question. What do you think of Velma here? Should we trust her?
There is one part that I think could lead to a twist, and that's we've seen at least twice in that last issue that Velma suffered from some serious mental snaps. She had a couple of breakdowns. And one at that base in Antarctica, and we don't know exactly just how bad things got, but she says, it wasn't pretty. So there's a possibility that maybe she doesn't even know that she's to blame for this. Maybe she snapped, and part of this is all in her own head.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting was the fact that she was talking about some way of ending the nightmares that she had, and I mean, she goes to all these lengths. She ends up becoming what it was part of this government facility that sent her to one of the poles, like North Pole or South Pole. She is by herself for a very long time. And so this solitude gets to her, and she, just like you said, she snaps. And
actually, she encountered Kurt Russell and the Thing.
And the Thing?
I was waiting for that, too.
In Antarctica, and that's what started it all. She actually went in to recover the base that Kurt Russell was at in Antarctica, and the Thing took over, and that was the genesis of everything.
Well, I'll tell you what, I would love to see a John Carpenter written crossover with the Scooby Gang. That would be badass.
In the memory of Mark Radley, so the unpaid intern that's listening to this, make it happen.
That's right. That's what comics are great for, though.
I am going to say this: 6 issues, and we couldn't get a single mention of my glasses.
The glasses thing was a staple of the just as much as Fred's ascot.
Yeah, to the point that when South Park did that Scooby Doo parody with Korn, they even threw in the joke about the drummer losing his glasses and him going, "I can't see a thing." It's like, no, everyone knows that Velma cannot see a thing without her glasses. And it's like just one throwaway line they're saying, hang on, I can't see a thing without my glasses. Something.
Do you guys have any theories as to what the hell's going on?
Yes.
Okay, go Teasley.
I told you, John Carpenter, the Thing. Yeah, honestly, I think it's a elaborate scheme by Dick Dasherly or Muttley to win the
Laugh Olympics.
The Laugh
Wacky
Olympics.
Races.
Wacky Races.
Yes, the Really Rottens. They're behind this. We're going to get a callback to Grape Ape.
Oh my!
We may see Jabberjaws in a King Sharp kind of cameo. I'm pretty sure Speed Buggy will even show up.
Oh, at one point we had a perfect impression by Alexis Hejna of Speed Buggy on this podcast, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and then I kept doing it. I kept spitting all over my phone. We need to bring this guy in on our next DC Hanna-Barbera crossover.
Oh, yeah. Teasley fit right in there. Heck yeah.
I do think it's those DC Hanna-Barbera books we've been reading that I think have spoiled us for wanting Easter eggs.
Yes.
They put in I'm reading Yogi Bear meets Deathstroke. And there's a conversation between these two characters about El Kabong and Ricochet Rabbit.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, oh my God, that's the funniest freaking thing I've ever read in my life. So yes, I am so spoiled about wanting more Easter eggs from the Hanna-Barbera characters.
I could just see that going, hey, Deathstroke, how about a picnic basket? I would just lose it if I ever seen that in comic form. I'm sorry.
Teasley, what do you think about the villains? How about the villains of this issue, or I should say these 6 issues? We really don't get the big villain here. It's just all creatures, right?
I think it's kind of nice. It takes what we always were used to having Scooby chase down the quote unquote monsters and bringing them to life, that they're actually monsters. I was really waiting for the whole reveal of they go to kill, something happens and one of the monsters is actually somebody in a mask and they come
I actually shot somebody that was dressed up.
Yeah, and especially when they kept beating you over the head. They're really human. They're really people. And just have Shaggy or somebody or Fred just accidentally try to get away and pull a mask off, and it's like Mr. Jones down by the farm, and he's just trying
he's dead. Intestines hanging out.
like he's trying to survive, so he dressed up, just trying to fit in so he could survive, and he ends up dead. That would have been hilarious.
Oh my gosh, Alexis, what do you think of that? Do you like the fact that we don't get like the big main, there's big main villains? Because that just feels like straight up the callback to the series. But what do you think?
It's either going to be her 4 brothers running things, or like I've hypothesized, part of this is because Velma has had a complete mental breakdown.
Okay. All right.
So it's going to be one thing. And I hate to say it, I think we're partially leaning towards the breakdown because we never actually see her brothers' faces and we don't know their names.
No, we don't.
That's what I was going to ask. With you throwing that theory, Alex, what if the 4 brothers are just 4 separate personalities from a psychological break?
Oh my gosh.
I was just thinking that actually as soon as you said something. I was like, yeah, that's popping in my head.
That would be, you have like 4 breaks. Obviously, she's highly intelligent, and her mind just splinters, and it creates these 4 quote-unquote brothers that she outwardly sees, but nobody else sees.
So at the end of this, Velma's the villain?
Yes, that would be an amazing twist. Is that, the reason why they kept beating you over the head with, it's all your fault, and she has to actually face her own mental issues and realize it really is her fault. The 4 brothers were just separate personalities that her mind fractured off and formed to deal with her own mental disorder.
Yeah,
I just realized there's a panel here that I think kind of gives away that that's going to be what happened.
Really? Okay.
In the 6th issue, we've got her at the Antarctic base, isolated, sitting there alone. She's got the parka. Then it cuts to her sitting with her 4 brothers, and they start talking to her. But then there's a panel of her back at the base.
Ooh, wow.
This would be a really good thing to ask Mark about because he deals with it. I deal with it to an extent, but to deal with it from a clinical aspect, and I'll give Mark some credit because I love him so much.
Lucky bastard.
Hey, he got me my start in podcasting way back when. And then I proceed to get some guy's start, and I can barely come on his show every so often.
I hear you, Teasley. I hear you.
But I mean, it's known that super traumatic events and stuff will cause the mind to fracture and create you compartmentalize that trauma.
Yep.
So that is an actually amazing thing to look into. Like I said, I'm tracking down all these issues, and if I do track them down, I may have to keep you guys updated in.
Well, I can tell you that somebody out there right now may be listening to this and going, you guys are way off because I've already read all 35 issues, or they're going, holy shit, I can't believe you guys figured that out. So one or the other.
They're going, okay, we have the epiphany of Shaggy on a podcast that has read 5 issues and figured out the other 30 issues. But might as well say we are the Rad Legion Scooby gang. I mean, we got Velma, we've got Shaggy and Jesse. I guess you're going to be Scooby.
Do I have to be? Okay,
you're my
Daphne.
You're Winfrey, but I would say Mark, but he runs the place, so I can't call Mark. And you got Fred in the totally 80s Pat Mullen.
Oh yeah, okay.
He's Fred. So I mean,
well, okay. Last character we got to talk about. That is Scrappy Doo. So Scrappy Doo, Alexis, tell what do you think here? I mean, it's bit parched throughout this first 6 issues, but what are your thoughts?
Well, let's face it, we were all waiting for Scrappy Doo to show up. We knew he was gonna, make a cameo appearance at least.
At least, yeah.
So again, I never really had the animosity towards Scrappy, but it was kind of fun to play along, and I saw why so many people hated his guts, and I was able to laugh along with it. So I was kind of on the middle field for that. And again, my husband loves Scrappy Doo. I have to admit, the only thing that bugged me, we brought this up earlier, was the final piece of the 6th issue with Scrappy, where he realizes he can essentially transmogrify his body, and he changes the lower half of his body from a regular dog to a bipedal system, which is similar to, how he was designed in the original cartoons. He always walked on his hind legs.
He didn't he?
Yeah, he didn't walk on four legs like Scooby did.
That's right.
So I guess it kind of makes sense. And again, I'm hoping they mention it in a for upcoming issue, because I like that they brought the whole "Let me at him." Scrappy's got two catchphrases: "Let me at him" and "Puppy Power."
Puppy Power.
I wanted to hear Scrappy say "Puppy Power."
They've got to incorporate that somewhere.
It's got to happen.
I mean, that's the most iconic phrase for Scrappy. So
now I'm hoping that Scooby Dum shows up, and I
will tell you right now, if Scooby Dum shows up, it'll hit you that.
The only one that made that gray dog was Scooby Dum.
There was one there, wasn't there?
What would have been cool is if they said Scooby Dum was the failed experiment, because he was the dumbest one out.
He was, yeah.
But just made him like the enforcer, like this big, gigantic, like freak of nature. But he was dumb as rocks. That would have been cool. I would have loved that. Or, because I mean, how many Hanna-Barbera dogs are there? There's Scooby, Scrappy, Scooby Dum.
Please don't make us count.
Oh, wow.
Huckleberry Hound, Dynamite. That's the only 5 I could think of right off that are really noticeable.
All right, well, I've got a picture here. Okay, that does have Scooby Doo. All right, I guess we can't count Dino because Dino's a dinosaur. He acted like a dog, but Dino from the Flintstones.
Oh, Astro.
Astro, is he on here? Yep, he's on here. So we have Hong Kong Phooey, Dino.
Hong Kong Phooey. Hong Kong Phooey.
If Hong Kong Phooey makes an appearance, I will lose my shit. I can see it now. They traveled to an Oriental base, and there's a dog with a Fu Manchu and one of the hats on, and that's Hong Kong. I would lose my shit. I would literally lose my mind.
Who the hell is Snuffle?
No, Snuffleupagus?
Not Snuffleupagus. I know that one.
I'm a Googling.
I've never Snuffles. I don't know. I don't even recognize this dog.
Well, he's not important. Move on.
Reddy? Reddy? Reddy, the dog?
No, not important.
Muttley?
I recognize Snuffles. He was kind of a prototype Muttley. He appeared on a couple of Quick Draw McGraw shorts. He was the one who originated that whole, he pointed his mouth for a tree going, and then you'd give him the treat and he'd do that little orgasmic, and float into the air. That's the most sound effects I've ever put on this show.
What if we see What if Muttley? Muttley is one of the dogs?
Yeah, you guys were talking about Dastardly, and it wouldn't surprise me. Like it goes.
Muttley being on there maybe that's one of the ones with Scrappy as Muttley.
Okay. Then we have Augie Doggy and Doggy Daddy.
What if somebody does Snagglepuss?
We've talked about Snagglepuss on here in the past.
Just think of Snagglepuss and the Apocalypse.
Oh, I don't even want to think about it, Ethan.
Well, I mean, just think they got this like really primal thing. As Snagglepuss is basically a saber-toothed tiger that's pink.
Right. That's pink.
And him being like this giant mutated animal. Yeah,
interesting.
Him and Scooby like squaring off. I mean, if you think about it, that universe, you could do so much in the Apocalypse with that universe.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you got Grape Ape. Grape Ape would fit in that universe, in that apocalyptic, and he would be a badass.
That would be. I mean, it's interesting to see where they would go with it.
I was going to say, I know how we can find out. We read the other 31 issues.
That's right. Well, let's do final thoughts here, and we'll get on out of here. Teasley, we'll start with you. I mean, it sounds like you had a good time reading this. You got any other thoughts you'd like to share on Scooby Apocalypse 1 through 6?
Not through 1 through 6. I want to talk about 7 through 36. I'm hooked. I mean, I am literally hooked. Like I said, because coming into this, I was totally into we're going to get the quote unquote Scooby gang, and it's just transformed into this apocalyptic world. I didn't know we was going to get Sarah Connor with, biotech that's going to be kicking ass and everything's going to be turned on its ear. I am hooked. I'm like, I have found something to actually do while I'm at work rather than working. I will be reading. I will be further reading these issues, and when I get time and if I see something that catches my eye that I need to share with you guys, I will definitely be sharing.
I'm curious.
Like I said, because you can do Dino-Mutt. Dino-Mutt fits in this because he's a biocanning. He's a half machine.
Yeah.
He would fit into this, and I'm all in. I loved the first 5 issues I got to read. It hooked me. I just wished it wasn't so wordy, and they didn't keep beating you over the head with the same conversations in different words. You don't have. It's like you're beating a dead horse. Sorry, El Kabong. But.
Yeah. All right. Well, it does look like the writing team stays together here. All the way up through 25, I saw Giffen and DeMatteis on here. So yeah, you're not going to get it. If you like what you got here in this first 6 issues, you're going to like that. You're probably going to continue to like it.
No, I actually want to pick up the next volume. I've got the trade with the first 6 volumes in it. I do want to go pick it up. I am hoping for more Easter eggs down the road. We talked about how we want to see puppy power, and I can't see a thing without my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I am hoping we see some of that. Maybe we see some of the monsters take on the forms of the classic Scooby Doo ghosts that we all know: the Creeper, the Pterodactyl, the Tar Monster. So that's what I really would like to see in the future issues, but I did enjoy this. I did.
Okay, very good. All right, well, I think that brings our discussion of Scooby Apocalypse to a close. Let's go ahead. We'll get into plugs here. Alexis, please plug away.
I just realized that since I haven't had a comic convention in 2 months, every plug I've done since Christmas has been the exact same. So I think you guys are sick of hearing me say this by now. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. We handmade unique, one-of-a-kind jewelry out of old game pieces. You can find us. We have stores on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. We post on Facebook, Instagram, and Under Protest Twitter. We do have our first convention of the season coming up, thank God, because, again, I haven't had a convention in 2 months, and I have been going insane. So we will be appearing at Planet Comic-Con here in Kansas City at the end of March. Come April, we have 2 shows. We will be appearing at Cape Girardeau, Missouri at Cape Comic-Con and West Plains, Missouri at OzCon. It's our first time at OzCon. We've been to Cape a few times. We love that show. Just found out that they have 2 of the classic Power Rangers appearing there that weekend, so that's going to be interesting.
Ooh, interesting. All right, Teasley, why don't you let our listeners know where they can hear you talk some sports?
People can go back and listen to me on Just the Tip Off. Madness preview.
Who came up with that?
Came up with that. I did. They wanted to call it the tip off, and I just said no. We're calling it Just the Tip Off. March Madness preview that we will be recording as of March 19th. And then we will be returning for a special April edition once the NFL draft kicks in. And then back in August to start back up with the kickoff 2019 NFL season preview. And I just cannot. I was supposed to start a fantasy football podcast over there, but I kind of lost all interest in it when I lost my amazing co-host that I had on the cheap seats. That became too big to do podcasts with me anymore, unless I'm on his show. But currently, me and him are no longer friends because of a certain NFL trade that we would not speak of anymore.
Hey, you know what, Teasley? Me and you share a unique moment in the fact that we both watched OBJ play in Cleveland, and I get to watch that happen a lot more.
I got to meet him, and in your words, I look like a 8-year-old meeting their hero for the very first time.
You did, dude. You legit did. Biggest smile on your face.
And so outside of that, I don't do anything except work. And But if everything goes right, I'm trying to talk Robert Winfrey in. If we can get the blessings of the Grand Poobah of the Rattledge Broadcasting Network, I'm trying to get Robert Winfrey to revisit me and him doing a Damn You Hollywood on Pet Sematary when it comes out.
Ooh, there you go.
Early reviews for that have been amazing. I can't wait to see it.
I'm hearing that it is better than the original. And because me and Robert have the tendency, since Mart's a little pansy, he doesn't like scary movies because he has to cuddle with his wife to stay safe. But me and Robert, we loved it. I love doing horror movies with Robert, and it's always interesting when me and Robert get to do a show together, especially when we don't have the control that Mark is. If you don't believe me, go back and listen to Mark trying to rein me and Robert in during the Venom podcast that we covered.
So, I still haven't listened to that yet. I haven't watched the movie, and I've been wanting to watch or listen to the podcast.
What's the point? Every time we do a podcast with Mark, somehow we end up bringing up Venom.
Well, if you want a good thing, you listen to me lose my mind over the portrayal of Carnage in the post-credit scene.
Oh, boy.
I'm not arguing. I hated that movie too. But no, seriously, it's a running gag with the Rattledge Broadcasting Network. For some reason, every show we either have to drop a comment about how we all hated Venom or make a comment about how Reese Witherspoon turns into Romaine Lettuce in A Wrinkle in Time.
I do know. But with that being said, Alexis, you've seen Woody Harrelson as Carnage, as Cletus Cassidy. Does he not look like an old man with a Raggedy Ann wig on?
Yes, very much.
That was the running joke during us doing Venom.
It kills me because actually, if I was a casting director, Woody Harrelson as Carnage would be perfect, but he looked terrible, and that was the most shooed in teaser I have ever seen in my life.
The problem with Carnage is the fact that they did Woody Harrelson 20 years too late. Back when National Born Killers was a thing, and it was coming off that. Amazing Cletus Cassidy. Now, not so much. I wish they would have went with someone that could have been in that vein. I was thinking of the guy from Dexter or the guy that plays Jeremiah on Gotham. But we don't always get what we want.
No, apparently not. Well, I'm going to have to watch the movie and come up with at least an opinion at some point.
Well, just forward through the first 45 minutes, and you won't miss Venom. He doesn't show up like 45 minutes into the movie.
Make sure you have strong liquor.
Just to get through.
Yeah.
Teasley,
two totally different movies. It is very disconjointed.
Okay. So, and maybe you can catch Teasley show up on an episode of Big Brother from Kapow at some point.
They're on their second strike with me. I do get shout outs every once in a while. I told them that I'm going to have to do a show via satellite just so they can get back in my good graces.
Oh, there you go.
Or I threaten them that I'm going to Dueling Ogres.
Goodness. Don't go throwing that word around. Those two words, they don't go over well.
I got a very heartfelt apology email.
I love the guys over at Kapow, the Pop Cultured Podcast. All right, I'm ready to get out of here. Teasley, you got anything else to plug? No, I shouldn't have thrown it to him. Okay, all right. So just waiting for you to come up with something else.
No.
All right. Well,
I'm not as busy in the podcasting world as I used to be.
Yeah, you sound like you're a busy man elsewhere. Making yourself, focusing on work. So that's understandable.
Well, ladies, it's because I believe the children are the future. You teach them and let them lead the way. You just teach them all the beauty they possess inside.
And for Alexis Hejna and for Jason Teasley, I'm Jesse Starcher. This has been Source Material. We shall catch you next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Rattledge in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon.
Scooby Doo, where are you?
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn. Ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn. Tell people to stay off the lawn. Compare it to your neighbor's lawn. And complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
Hey you! Are you ready? Grab your pack, grab your tent, grab your gear. Jump in. We're going on an adventure. In Arizona, there's so much to see, so much to experience. At GCU, adventure is never too far away. Offering over 200 academic programs with a Christian worldview and nestled in the heart of Phoenix, you can earn your degree in fewer than 4 years and explore everything Arizona has to offer. Find your purpose at GCU. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu/AZRoadtrip.